Liverpool have made their move. Andoni Iraola is coming to Anfield. And if you know anything about what he built at Bournemouth, you know this is a massive deal. This isn't just a new manager. This is a completely different philosophy, a different energy, a different identity coming to one of the biggest clubs in the world. Over the next 20 minutes, we are going to break down everything. Who Iraola is, what he did at Bournemouth last season, how his press works in real match situations, the tactics, the formations, the key players who made it happen, and exactly what all of this means for Liverpool. Buckle up. This one is going to be detailed. So, first things first, who actually is Andoni Iraola? Because a lot of Liverpool fans might know the name, but not fully understand why the appointment is so exciting. Iraola is a Basque coach who started his managerial career at Mirandes in Spain before taking over Rayo Vallecano, where he took a club with almost no resources and turned them into one of the most entertaining pressing sides in La Liga. Teams were scared to play Rayo. They pressed like crazy. They were physical, aggressive, and completely relentless. He then moved to Bournemouth in the Premier League in 2023, and what he did there was honestly remarkable. Bournemouth were not a big club. They had a small budget, a young squad, and they were fighting to survive in the top flight. But under Iraola, they didn't just survive, they thrived. They finished with some of the best pressing stats in the entire Premier League. His teams never stop working. Every player presses, every player runs, every player buys into the system completely. That is the foundation of everything Iraola does. Let's talk about the 2024-25 season at Bournemouth specifically, because this is the most recent example of Iraola's work, and it tells you everything about what Liverpool are getting. Bournemouth finished in the top half of the Premier League, which for a club of their size is genuinely impressive. But the numbers behind the scenes are what really stand out. Bournemouth were consistently in the top 3 clubs in the Premier League for high turnovers, meaning they won the ball back high up the pitch more than almost anyone else. They were dangerous from pressing situations, scoring goals directly from pressing sequences. They were also one of the most physically fit squads in the league. Their players covered enormous distances every single match. Now think about what that means. Iraola didn't have the budget of Man City or Arsenal. He didn't have world-class players in every position. What he had was an elite system, elite organisation, and players who were completely committed to running and pressing for 90 minutes. Take that system and those principles and put them into a Liverpool squad, a squad with proper quality in every department. And you start to understand why people are so excited about this appointment. Right, let's get into the actual tactics. And we're starting with the big one, the high press. This is the defining feature of every Iraola team, and at Bournemouth last season, it was extraordinary to watch. The basic idea is simple. Rather than sitting back and defending in your own half, you push your whole team up the pitch and try to win the ball back as high as possible. The further up you win it, the closer you are to the opposition goal, and the less time the opposition have to recover. But here's the thing. A high press only works if every single player is doing it at exactly the right moment. If one player doesn't press, the whole thing falls apart. At Bournemouth, Iraola drilled this to perfection. Look at this sequence against Brighton. Bournemouth in cherry red pushing up, Dominic Solanke leading the press from the front, Ryan Christie cutting off the passing lane in midfield, and the Brighton centre-back under massive pressure with nowhere to go. That's not accidental. That's hours and hours of training, of repetition, of players understanding exactly where to be and when. The trigger for the press, the moment everyone goes, is usually a back pass to the goalkeeper, or a slow touch, or a pass to a centre-back under pressure. As soon as that trigger happens, the whole Bournemouth team springs forward as one unit. Now let's go even deeper on how Bournemouth's press actually worked in specific situations last season, because there are some really clever details here that show just how well coached this team was. One of Iraola's favourite pressing traps is what analysts call the side press, or the touchline trap. Bournemouth would deliberately channel the opposition towards one side of the pitch, usually by leaving the central passing lanes open but shutting off the wide options. Once the ball went to the fullback or wide defender near the touchline, the press would trigger immediately. The winger would close the fullback, the central midfielder would cut off the back pass, and a second midfielder would press the nearby central defender. The opposition player is now trapped near the touchline with almost no options. This happened again and again in the 2024-25 season. Against Newcastle at St James's Park, you can see it perfectly. Bournemouth's press forcing Longstaff into a terrible position, winning the ball 30 yards from goal and immediately transitioning into attack. Against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, Bournemouth used the same pressing trap multiple times in a game they eventually won. Iraola's players knew exactly when to press, where to press, and how to cover the spaces left behind. It was one of the most organised pressing systems in the entire Premier League last season. The second major tactical pillar is what happens immediately after Bournemouth win the ball, the transition into attack. And this is where Iraola's system becomes really lethal. Most teams, when they win the ball from a press, will take a moment to reset, look up, and play a safe pass. Not Iraola's Bournemouth. The instruction is simple. Attack immediately. The moment the ball is won, the players who are furthest forward go. Wingers sprint in behind the defensive line, the striker makes a run into the channel, and the player with the ball drives forward or plays a direct pass behind the defence. There is no hesitation. The speed of the transition is the whole point. Before the opposition can get organised, Bournemouth are already in the final third. Last season, a significant number of Bournemouth's goals came directly from pressing sequences, followed by immediate vertical attacks. The whole thing works as one connected move. Press, win the ball, attack instantly. For Liverpool, this suits them perfectly. They have wingers with pace, a striker who can make runs in behind, and midfielders with the engine to both press and then immediately support the attack. Iraola's transition game at Anfield could be absolutely devastating. Third tactical element, the wide overloads and how Iraola uses his full-backs. This is something that was really distinctive about Bournemouth last season and shows how sophisticated Iraola's attacking system is. In most teams, the full-back's job is fairly simple. Provide width, overlap, deliver crosses. Under Iraola, full-backs are much more intelligent than that. They don't just overlap. They time their runs based on where the midfielders are, whether the winger is cutting inside or staying wide, and where the space is on the far side of the pitch. Iraola creates what are called positional overloads in wide areas. On one side of the pitch, you might have the full-back, the winger, and a central midfielder all arriving in the same zone, completely overwhelming the opposition's two defenders on that side. The ball moves quickly between them, creating gaps before a cutback or pullback creates a shooting opportunity centrally. This worked brilliantly at Bournemouth because the players were so well drilled in their movement patterns. For Liverpool, who already have quality fullbacks and technically gifted wide players, Iraola's wide overload system could create enormous problems for opposition defences. It adds another dimension to the attack beyond just the press. It's about structured positional play in the final third that creates high-quality chances. Now, let's talk formations and shape, because this is where it gets really interesting from a tactical perspective. At Bournemouth, Iraola primarily used a 4-2-3-1, but the shape was fluid and it changed significantly depending on whether Liverpool had the ball or not. Without the ball, Bournemouth were compact and organised in a 4-4-2 press shape. The number 10 would press alongside the striker, and the midfield four would be tight and connected, cutting off passing lanes. With the ball in their own half, they would shift into the 4-2-3-1, with the double pivot controlling the build-up. But here is the really clever part. When Bournemouth were in possession in the opponent's half, the shape would morph into something closer to a 3-2-5. The two centre-backs would split wide, the holding midfielder would drop between them, and the two full-backs would push extremely high, almost like extra wingers. This meant 5 players were in advanced positions. The two wide players, the number 10, the striker, and one of the full-backs pushing even higher. The opposition would suddenly find themselves defending against 5 attacking players with only the ball-playing midfielder and centre-backs left behind. It's a brave, aggressive, high-risk, high-reward system that Iraola perfected at Bournemouth and that Liverpool have the squad to take to an even higher level. Let's give credit where it's due, because none of this worked at Bournemouth without the right players buying in completely. A few names stand out from the 2024-25 season who really made Iraola's system function at the highest level. Ryan Christie was absolutely crucial in midfield. His energy, his pressing intensity, his ability to cover huge areas of the pitch. He was the engine of the Bournemouth press. Without Christie running constantly, the press doesn't work as well. Antoine Semenyo on the wing was another huge part of it. His pace and directness made him a nightmare in transition moments, and his pressing from the front set the tone for the whole team. Marcos Senesi at centre-back was essential for the high defensive line. Comfortable on the ball, good in one-on-one defending when space appeared behind, and brave enough to defend in wide open spaces. Justin Kluivert's creativity and movement in the number 10 role provided the link between the press and the attack. These were not superstar players. They were well-coached, hard-working, committed players who believed completely in the system. Now, imagine replacing Christie's engine with a world-class central midfielder. Imagine replacing Semenyo's pace with a top-level winger. That is the Liverpool upgrade. The same system, better personnel throughout. So, what does all of this actually mean for Liverpool? Let's pull it all together. Liverpool are not Bournemouth. They have a bigger squad, more quality, more resources, and the pressure of competing in the Champions League as well as the Premier League. But the principles Iraola brings are scalable. The press works better with faster, more technically gifted players. The transitions are more dangerous with higher quality forwards. The wide overloads are more effective with better fullbacks. And the structural discipline of the system, the organisation, the shape, the pressing triggers, those things can be drilled into any group of players who are willing to work. What Iraola brings to Liverpool is an identity. Under Klopp, Liverpool had an identity: gegenpressing, heavy metal football, intensity and passion. That identity faded under subsequent managers. Iraola brings it back, but in his own way. It's still intense, still aggressive, still about winning the ball high and attacking quickly. But it's more structured, more positionally precise, more tactically evolved. The Liverpool fans who loved the Klopp era should love this too. Because at its heart, it's the same philosophy. Dominate through energy, press without mercy, attack without hesitation. But let's be honest about the risks, because there are real challenges here too. A high press and a high defensive line both leave space behind for opposition teams to exploit on the counter. At Bournemouth, there were moments when the press was beaten and teams got in behind. With a better quality striker than Bournemouth's opposition had, those moments could be costly. Liverpool will face elite attacking players in the Premier League and Champions League. Teams with the quality to beat a high press and hurt you on the transition. So Iraola needs his defenders to be elite at reading those situations. And his goalkeeper needs to act as an additional defender, sweeping behind the line. There's also the physical demand to consider. This system requires every outfield player to press constantly for 90 minutes. That means squad depth is critical. Iraola will need to rotate, keep players fresh, manage minutes carefully. If key players pick up injuries or fatigue, the press loses its intensity and the whole system becomes less effective. These are the challenges Iraola will face at a club of Liverpool's size and ambition. They're real, but they're also manageable with the right squad management and recruitment. So here is the final verdict. Andoni Iraola is one of the most exciting managerial appointments in the Premier League in years. What he built at Bournemouth last season, with limited resources, a small squad, against some of the best teams in the world, was genuinely impressive. He is a coach who knows exactly how he wants to play, who demands total commitment from his players, and who has proved he can get results with his system against elite opposition. Liverpool have given him a squad worthy of his ambitions. The high press, the instant transitions, the wide overloads, the fluid formations, all of it is coming to Anfield. And if the players buy in, if they run, press, and attack the way Iraola demands, Liverpool could become the most uncomfortable team in Europe to play against. A new era is starting at Anfield, and honestly, it's going to be brilliant to watch. That's it for this video. If you want more tactical breakdowns like this, subscribe and hit the bell, and drop a comment below telling me which part of Iraola's system you're most excited about. See you in the next one.